Sports explained. Sports began when two cavemen figured out it was mildly amusing to kick a ball around, while Ugg the caveman, who wasn't cool enough to kick the ball around, fiddled around with making something he called the wheel. Obviously, the caveman kicking the ball around got more attention and went on to be the most prosperous cave people of them all, getting accepted into all of the popular cavemen colleges. The question often arises of whether or not a specific activity is in fact a sport. It appears to be somewhat difficult to come up with a definition of sports, so I will attempt to create a number of criteria. Criteria number 1. Sports must be competitive. This excludes Little League from being a sport. Let me explain. Some relatively useless people, known as psychologists, figured out that playing is good for psychological development in children, which seems to be a huge waste of research money and time, given that these conclusions are in fact fairly obvious. However, as a result of knowing this, Little League was invented. Unfortunately, it was soon figured out that some children were good at sports, and some children were fat. As such, they didn't want to hurt the fat kids' feelings, so they removed competition from the sport. In an effort to create a way so that everybody wins, they in fact created a scenario where nobody wins. This prevented Little League from becoming sports for young people, but instead made it into an excuse for kids to muck about outside with their friends instead of doing something productive. Criteria number 2. Sports must have a concrete scoring system. Another way of saying this is saying that sports cannot have a subjective scoring system, but rather the way a winner is determined is simple. For example, the ball went into the net. Therefore, they get a point. Yet another way of saying this is, no, prancing about twirling a ribbon is not a sport, nor is dancing about on the ice, or flipping about on pieces of playground equipment. Criteria number 3. Proficiency at sports must be based on skill. As little skill that goes into throwing a ball around or kicking for our European viewers who don't necessarily have the upper body strength to play hockey or American football, it still does require skill. But wait, poker is a sport, and isn't that based on chance? To answer that, I will simply say no, it is not based on chance. Otherwise, random people would be winning the tournaments. So, we know what sports is, and it seems rather dull. So what exactly is the huge appeal? Why does this cause grown men to strip naked, paint themselves with tribal symbols, and go to battle with people who tend to favor a different team? Do these people understand that they aren't actually playing the sports? Will the rhetorical questions never end? I'll admit, sports are mildly amusing to play and watch. I watch hockey to see people get into fights and lose teeth, and I watch NASCAR to see people crash cars into the wall. But at the end of the day, grown men are watching grown men play a children's game. Therefore, there must be something more sinister at work. The truth is, people hate their lives. Regular life is boring and repetitive, and everyone needs a bit of escapism. They have to attach themselves emotionally to their favorite sports team. When the team loses, they are sad. When the team wins, they are happy. See, rather than admit to being a simple person like everybody else, people remove themselves from themselves and imbue themselves onto something else. Unfortunately, most, if not all people, are guilty of this strange problem.